Johnny Carson was in the middle of his monologue when a producer whispered something in his ear that made him stop mid-sentence. A little boy was waiting backstage, a little boy who wasn't supposed to be alive. The doctors had given 7-year-old Timothy 6 months to live, and he'd used his dying wish not to go to Disneyland, not to meet Superman, but to shake hands with Johnny Carson. The producers thought it would be a quick photo op, 30 seconds, maybe a minute. But when Timothy was rolled onto that stage in his wheelchair and looked up at Johnny with those eyes that had seen too much pain for a 7-year-old, something broke inside the king of late night. What Johnny did next in front of 20 million viewers who weren't ready for what they were about to witness would define the man behind the smile for the rest of his life. October 12, 1981. Studio One in Burbank, California. Just another Monday night taping of The Tonight Show. Johnny was on fire that night. The monologue was killing. The audience was eating it up. Ed McMahon was doing his trademark laugh. Everything was going exactly as planned. Then Fred Dorado, the show's executive producer, appeared at the edge of the stage. He never did that during taping. Never. Johnny saw him immediately and knew something was different. Fred walked over during a commercial break. He leaned in close. "Johnny, we've got a situation. There's a kid backstage. Make-A-Wish Foundation. He's not doing well. They brought him here tonight. His only wish was to meet you." Johnny looked toward the stage entrance. "How bad?" "Terminal leukemia. The family drove up from San Diego this morning. The doctors told him it might be his last good day." Johnny didn't hesitate. "Bring him out." "You sure?" "We can do it after the show." "Keep it private." "Fred." "Bring him out." Timothy Marsh was 7 years old. He weighed 42 pounds. The leukemia had been winning for 3 years now, and everyone knew how this story ended. But Timothy had one dream, one thing that got him through the hospital stays: the chemotherapy, the nights when his mom held his hand and tried not to cry where he could see her. He wanted to meet Johnny Carson. See, Timothy's mom, Barbara, was a single parent. Timothy's dad had left when the diagnosis came. Couldn't handle it. So it was just the two of them. And every night, no matter how bad Timothy felt, no matter how much pain he was in, they had a ritual. At 11:30 p.m., Barbara would turn on The Tonight Show. She'd sit next to Timothy's hospital bed, and they'd watch Johnny together. Timothy couldn't always laugh. Sometimes the pain was too much. But Johnny made his mom laugh. And when his mom laughed, Timothy felt a little bit better. "Mama," Timothy had said 2 weeks earlier, "before I go to heaven, can I meet the man who makes you smile?" Barbara had tried to explain that people like Johnny Carson don't meet regular people, that you can't just call up NBC and ask. But she called anyway, called the Make-A-Wish Foundation, made the request, never thought it would actually happen. Then the call came October 12th. They had one slot. Could they make it to Burbank? Barbara had said yes before the woman finished the question. The commercial break ended. Johnny looked at the audience. "Folks, we're going to do something a little different right now. We have a very special guest joining us tonight." The stage door opened. A production assistant pushed Timothy's wheelchair onto the stage. The audience didn't know what to do. This wasn't a celebrity. This was a tiny kid in a wheelchair, bald from chemo, wearing a suit that was way too big for him. He was clutching something against his chest. Johnny walked over immediately. He knelt down beside the wheelchair, eye level with Timothy. "Hey there, buddy. What's your name?" Timothy's voice was small but clear. "Timothy Marsh. I'm 7. I came from San Diego." "San Diego? That's a long drive. You tired?" "A little bit, but I wanted to meet you really bad." Johnny smiled. That genuine Carson smile, not the TV one. "Well, I'm awful glad you're here, Timothy. Is that your mom?" He gestured to Barbara, who was standing just off stage, barely holding it together. "Yeah, that's my mama. She watches you every night with me." "Every night? Even the reruns?" Timothy giggled. Actually giggled. Even the reruns. The audience was dead silent. 20 million people watching at home were dead silent, because something was happening that didn't happen on talk shows. Something real. Johnny noticed Timothy was holding something. "What have you got there, pal?" Timothy held out a homemade card. Construction paper, crayons, the works. A kid's drawing of Johnny sitting at his desk. I made this for you. Mama helped with the spelling. Johnny took the card. His hands were shaking slightly. He opened it. Inside, in a child's handwriting. Thank you for making my mama smile. Love, Timothy. Johnny stared at those words, read them again, then one more time. The audience saw it happen. His composure, that legendary Carson cool, just cracked. Johnny looked at Timothy, this little kid who was dying, this 7-year. Old who'd use his dying wish not for Disneyland, not for meeting a superhero, but to say thank you for making his mom smile. And Johnny Carson broke. His eyes filled with tears, his voice caught. He tried to speak and couldn't. Timothy saw Johnny crying and reached out his small hand. He put on Johnny's arm. It's okay, Mr. Carson. Mama cries too sometimes. She says it means you got a big heart. That did it. Johnny completely lost it. He pulled Timothy into a hug. Gentle because Timothy was so fragile. And Johnny Carson, the king of late night, the man who'd interviewed every president since Nixon, who'd never shown weakness, who'd built an entire career on being unflappable, sobbed on national television. The audience didn't know whether to applaud or stay silent. Most of them were crying. Too. Ed McMahon, sitting at his desk, had tears streaming down his face. Doc Severson, the band leader, was wiping his eyes. The camera operators were crying. The boom operator was crying. 20 million Americans were watching a moment of pure, unscripted humanity. Johnny pulled himself together barely. He was still kneeling beside Timothy's wheelchair. Timothy, he said, his voice rough. You are one special kid. You know that. Mama says that, too. Your mama's right. Johnny paused. Can I ask you something? Okay. What do you want to be when you grow up? The question hung in the air. Everyone in that studio knew Timothy wasn't going to grow up. The doctors had been clear. Weeks maybe, not months. But Timothy answered without hesitation. A comedian like you. Johnny's face did something complicated. Pain and pride and heartbreak all at once. Yeah, you got any jokes for me? Timothy nodded eagerly. Why did the chicken cross the playground? I don't know why to get to the other slide. It wasn't funny. It was a little kid joke. Barely even made sense. But Johnny laughed. Really laughed. And the audience laughed. And Timothy lit up like he just performed at Carnegie Hall. That's good. That's really good. Johnny stood up addressing the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, Timothy Marsh, the future of comedy. The audience gave Timothy a standing ovation. A real one, not the polite kind. The kind you give when you've just witnessed something important. What happened next wasn't captured by the cameras. The show went to commercial, and Johnny did something he'd never done before. He had the producers clear the stage. Everyone out except Timothy, his mom, and Johnny. Johnny sat down on the floor next to Timothy's wheelchair. Just the three of them on that famous Tonight Show stage. Timothy, I want you to have something. Johnny took off his watch, a Rolex he'd been wearing for 15 years, worth more than Barbara made in a year. This watch has been with me for every show, every interview, every moment. And I want you to have it, so you can always remember that you're not just special to your mama. You're special to me, too. Timothy's eyes went wide. I can't. That's too much. You're not taking it. I'm giving it. Big difference. Barbara was crying. Foolin' sobbing. Johnny, we can't accept. Johnny looked at her. Ma'am, your son taught me something tonight. He reminded me why I do this. It's not about the ratings or the celebrities or any of that. It's about making people smile when they need it most. You two have been watching me every night, and I didn't even know you existed, but now I do. And I'm going to make sure Timothy gets the best care available, whatever he needs, however long he needs it. Johnny, we don't have I didn't ask about money. I said whatever he needs. Johnny wrote something on a piece of paper, his personal phone number. He handed it to Barbara. You call me day or night. If Timothy needs anything, you call me. Timothy died on April 3rd, 1982, 6 months after that Tonight Show appearance. 6 months the doctors said he wouldn't get. But they weren't ordinary months. Johnny kept his promise. He called Timothy every week, sometimes twice a week. They'd talk about jokes, about comedy, about life. When Timothy was too sick to talk, Johnny would just stay on the line while Barbara held the phone to Timothy's ear, and Johnny would do his monologue. Private performances for an audience of one. Johnny paid for experimental treatments. Flew in specialists, made sure Timothy got to see Star Wars in a private screening room when he was too weak to go to the theater. And he did one more thing. Something he never told anyone about while he was alive. He set up a trust fund for Barbara, enough to cover all the medical bills, all the funeral expenses, and enough left over that she'd never have to worry about money again. The only condition, she couldn't tell anyone where it came from. After Timothy died, Barbara sent Johnny a letter. He kept it in his desk drawer for the rest of his life. It was found there after Johnny died in 2005. The letter was simple. Dear Johnny, Timothy passed this morning peacefully. He was holding your watch. His last words were, "Tell Mr. Carson I hope I made him laugh. You gave my son 6 extra months of joy. You gave him dignity. You gave him a reason to fight a little longer. But most importantly, you saw him not as a dying boy, not as a tragedy, but as Timothy, a kid who loved jokes and wanted to make his mama smile. Thank you for seeing my son. Forever grateful, Barbara." Johnny never talked about Timothy publicly. When asked about emotional moments on the show, he'd deflect, change the subject, make a joke. But people who knew him said Timothy changed something fundamental in Johnny. After that night, Johnny started paying attention differently to the audience, to the people behind the cameras, to the stories people weren't telling. He started a private foundation. Nobody knew about it until after he died. It funded pediatric cancer research. Millions of dollars, all anonymous. Ed McMahon once said, after Timothy, Johnny stopped performing life and started living it. That little boy reminded him what matters. On Johnny's final episode in 1992, someone in the audience held up a sign. Remember Timothy? The cameras caught Johnny's face when he saw it. He nodded slightly, touched his wrist where the watch used to be. After the show, a reporter asked Johnny about the sign. What did Remember Timothy mean? Johnny smiled. That genuine smile. It means some of the most important people you'll ever meet aren't famous. They're just important. Here's what people don't understand about October 12th, 1981. It wasn't special because Johnny Carson cried on television. Famous people cry all the time now. It's practically required. It was special because Johnny forgot he was on television. For those few minutes, he wasn't the king of late night. He wasn't performing. He wasn't playing the role of Johnny Carson, talk show host. He was just a man who met a dying kid and realized that all the fame, all the success, all the legendary status in the world meant nothing compared to making one little boy feel special before he died. Timothy came to the Tonight Show to meet his hero, but Johnny walked away from that night knowing he'd met his. We live in a world obsessed with celebrity, with followers and likes and viral moments. We measure success in numbers and influence. But on October 12, 1981, the most successful man on television learned a lesson from a 42-pound 7-year-old. Success isn't about how many people know your name. It's about being there for the people who need you most. Timothy used his dying wish to say thank you to someone who made his mama smile. Johnny used his fame to make sure Timothy's last months were filled with dignity and joy. One kid, one moment, one reminder that we're all just human beings trying to matter to someone. The question Timothy asked Johnny, why did the chicken cross the playground, wasn't the question that changed everything. The real question was the one Timothy never asked out loud. Do I matter? And Johnny Carson, with tears streaming down his face on national television, answered, yes, you matter more than you'll ever know. Every kid fighting an impossible battle matters. Every parent holding their hand in a hospital room matters. Every person who feels invisible matters. Timothy reminded us of that. Johnny made sure we couldn't forget. If this story touched you, hit that subscribe button. Share it with someone who needs to remember that fame and success mean nothing if we don't use them to help others. Drop a comment about a time someone made you feel seen when you needed it most. And ring that notification bell for more stories about the human moments behind Hollywood's biggest legends. Because sometimes the most important people aren't the ones on stage. They're the ones in the audience just hoping someone notices there.